a reflection rather than a suggestion. If you feel that you really need to make a suggestion to someone that's said something, please meet with that person afterwards and have that in person, but not all as a group. So reflections vis-a-vis suggestions, if we can, when we get into the discussion part. So, without further ado, so my early spirituality, I started out going to a beautiful, huge church in downtown Boston. And the sun would pour in the morning before they built the skyscraper next door. And it was magnificent. There's a huge... There were huge plate glass windows, just wow, blazing through, and it's a giant. If you haven't seen it, it's a huge Romanesque Richardson building. It's magnificent, and I loved it. And I was in the choir, and I loved the music, and I really loved Tom Kennedy's. He was one of the his sermons really struck a chord with me. I felt like he was really speaking to me. I love that part of Trinity. I wasn't so much enamored with the ritual. In fact, I found it a little bit too much. And for me, it was almost even actually a barrier, I think, in looking back to my relationship with God, just for me. So that's the beginning. I believe in God. You know, every Christmas I'd pray to God for hockey gloves. Please, God, get hockey gloves. Took 3 years before they got, took time, dude. But, and I prayed to God when I was going up Huntington Ave with my cat dying in a box in my arms, crying my eyes out, begging him. Didn't happen. And I begged him again when my grandfather was dying. Didn't happen. But then I realized this is absurd, Ben. You can't beg God to change someone from dying. That's not the way it works. But a little bit I was disillusioned and just sort of went back to my, I would call it belief, but not all in spirituality, belief in God. So going to church. And then I had what we could call my Lenten 40 days in the wilderness. Was not 40 days, it was 40 years, actually. Went running around the world, having fun. Still, God was in me, just like I believe he's in everybody. But maybe I wasn't really listening. I was hearing God's voice, but I wasn't acting on it. I could hear it. And I take that as a conscience. He was speaking to me, or the higher power was speaking to me, but I wasn't acting on it. Usually I was just having fun, being completely selfish, and having a great time of it, but really, really selfish. Anyway, moved back to this area and with 2 young children, and we found St. Paul's. And we loved this place. What did we love about St. Paul's? The community, the welcoming community was profound. And we didn't even shop around. We were going to shop around for churches. We didn't. We're like, this is a fit. And we stayed. And what do I love about it is that for me, in these days now, still I wasn't all in, but I felt like I can show my religious feeling by reflecting a little of Christ's light. How can I do that in the food pantry? I was very involved in the food pantry for a long time. And the bike mission. I really love the bike mission. I call it the bike mission. It's not the bike mission. But honestly speaking, in addition to the yard sale, I also fixed up a number of bikes that I don't know if it counts as a mission because I give them away, not sell them, but give them to people who are struggling and have lost their transportation. And I always make a big point of putting a St. Paul sticker on it. I don't know if they peel it off 5 days later or 5 minutes later, but the sticker is on there. You know, I'm reflecting a little light. I'm not browbeating them with evangelizing, but I'm trying to reflect what this community has brought to me to them, just to show them, to introduce it. So going along like that, but again, not all in. Now, in all of this time, I'm drinking very heavily, like properly heavily, in the just to put things into perspective. My idea of a sports drink in the morning was a sports bottle full of ice, and then some flavored powder, what do you call it, drink powder, and then fill it up with vodka. That was my get started in the morning sports drink. Okay, so I had a really serious problem, but I also have a really big ego. My ego is not my amigo, but in those days I thought it was. And I thought I can handle this problem. I realized it was a problem, but I can handle it. I can, because I'm great, man. I'm a hell of a guy. I can do this. But I couldn't. I finally realized I couldn't. And I was introduced to AA. Now, one of the things in AA is the only requirement that we have to be in our program, the only requirement is a desire. So you don't have to be sober. You just want to be sober. That's all you need to be in our group. And I've been in some pretty solid groups. I've never been in the service, and I've been to war, but I've been into some kind of critical trauma support groups in the past where you really needed to rely on the team, otherwise people weren't going to make it. And that's the kind of fellowship we have in AA. That's what we looking after each other. And when I go into I just started going to prisons, and what resonates with these guys is I tell them all you have to do is want to do it. So now you want to do it, you come into the program, but if you're in the program for a little while, you start to get pressure about doing the steps. There are 12 steps. Maybe you know them or not, but so the idea is after we get sober, now we pushed away all these problems with alcohol. They didn't go away. We just pushed them away, and they're coming back. So we need tools to handle that, to manage that situation so that we don't go back and drink again, because that will be our most often first reaction. So rather than doing that, rather than falling back into that trap, we have developed these steps. And one of the key steps is turning yourself over completely, not halfway, completely to God or a higher power. And it's really tough for a lot of people who have that Old Testament image of God who loves you so much, he's going to show you how much he loves you by sending you straight to hell if you make one single mistake. That's how much he loves you. Dude, he loves you, man. He does. He's looking out for you. What kind of a friend wouldn't do that for you, you know? But, or someone in their life is denigrating their love choice because they don't approve of it, and using their religion to back up their disdain for your lifestyle. So that baggage, that religious baggage, is big for a lot of people. And how do they overcome it? How can they get past that and feel love? Well, one thing I say is that I really, really, really believe God is in all of us already. We don't have to, the burning bush. Hey, if you see a burning bush, good on you, magic. I used to wait for the burning bush, but I don't anymore. No, for me, I don't think it's going to be a burning bush. It's going to be little incremental things, little tiny glimmers here, glimmer there. But if I'm looking for them, I'll see them. So keep an open mind. Don't slam the door closed on it. Just keep that door open a crack before you say, no, I don't believe it. I had bad experiences with God. God didn't keep Grandpa alive. God didn't keep my cat alive. Don't close the door. Don't close the door because of that. Just keep it open a crack to let a little light maybe in, because that little kernel of light is what might help you give up your ego, give yourself over completely to the higher power, because he is in all of us. If you've ever had a sense of what to do, right or wrong, That was a higher power speaking to you. So, and I really believe every single one of us has had that. And the few among us who haven't had it, God love them because they have it, but it was crushed because of the adults, frankly, in their life. The people that they came into contact or didn't come into contact crushed them and made them feel that it was such a dog eat dog world and the first bite counts that they had to push down that instinct of doing something that wasn't right because it was a survival. And I still absolutely believe God is in their heart. In fact, there should be our number one people that we reach out to. Want to reach out to somebody. Of course, we can reach out to someone in our community because we love all of each other. We know each other. We see each other every Sunday. We're our group. Of course, we love each other. But what about that bum on the gutter or that person that stinks on the train? We got to love them too. This is what, to me, the big effort of spirituality. So how do we get there? So there are different routes we can get there. One of them is in the deepest despair. Juan Jay shared with us about his moment of really feeling the Holy Spirit, God, come into his life. And pardon me if I'm misrepresenting the story, but as I heard it, he was having a very difficult time. Very difficult time. He was feeling deep depression, and he just didn't think, how could God lay this on one person? How could a person feel so bad, so blue? He felt the way we feel when we're in deep depression. And he said that he felt God come over him like a blanket. And I just thought that was the most wonderful metaphor. And I had the most admiration for him. I thought, oh, what a lucky cat. Despite the fact that he was so blue, he got God's blanket. Because frankly, one of the only other times in life you're going to hear things experienced described as God's blanket is heroin. That is frequently described as God's blanket, unfortunately. The feeling when it comes over us, that just safe, warm, the noise has stopped. But the key point here is that in the Dostoevsky quote, and the whole thing is, it's actually not Dostoevsky, it's Apollodorus the Gnostic, who was quoted by Sonia in Crime and Punishment, trying to console. And the whole poem is, and it's not in Crime and Punishment, but I will add the first line because I think it's important, is, say not, there's no salvation, that you are weak with grief. The darker the night, the brighter the stars. The deeper the sorrow, the closer to God. That vulnerable time, that's when we're the most open to a higher power, to God, to really give ourselves over, to be all in. The Ashcroft sermon. So Reverend Ashcroft gave a sermon at Trinity recently about the Beatitudes, and one of the things, and I recommend that you read it. I'll tell you where it is if you're interested afterwards. He was talking about the Beatitudes, and one of them that he mentioned that a little bit is in this line is, to be blessed is to be stripped of the illusion that we can save ourselves. So in my drinking days, I thought I believed in God, but that I could control the alcoholism. I was basically blocking God out of my life with that thinking. And I think that's what he was talking about, because he actually speaks about a lot about recovery. At any rate, these are my thoughts on the higher power, how can we open, how can we make ourselves vulnerable to be able to give ourselves over completely. I have no idea. I'm just beginning this journey, but it's a really fulfilling one, and I'm really excited to be on it. As I say, I'm just beginning it. But we have little sayings along that kind of help sometimes. Like we say, God can move mountains, but he doesn't shovel. That means you got to get the shovel. Or God will guide your boat, but he doesn't row. That means you got to put the effort in. It's not going to, you can't just say, God, hockey gloves, give me hockey gloves. No, there's more to it than that. So I'll end on that. No, I haven't got, I hope that's enough. Anyway, that's all I got. Eh, my life has improved enormously since and I haven't honestly completely turned my life over to God. I haven't. I'm working on it. But since I've begun this journey of doing it, my life has improved profoundly. And I absolutely, I'm sure some of you already have done that. But if you're thinking about doing it, I absolutely encourage you to do it. And don't be, well, no, I'm making suggestions. Am I supposed to do that? For me, I could get bogged down by the ritual of the church. And don't be bogged down by that. Don't let that baggage hold you back. Uh, uh, Embrace what you can in the sanctuary, but more importantly, take it with you from the sanctuary, because there's a little expression in the Arlington Street Church that says, the service begins when the service ends. I like that expression. It's something we can all live by. Anyway, thank you very much for coming. If you want to share your thoughts on the topic of this topic for a couple minutes, I think we have a couple minutes to go, right? Don't we? Okay, a lot of time, still plenty of time. Sorry if it was too quick. Anyway, so that's been my. No, happy. Yeah, I would be happy to. And in fact, there's a big debate in AA about other people stealing our steps and using them. But my feeling is, God love you. Take these out and scream them from the mountaintop. But that's like AA heresy, so don't repeat that. Edit later, please, Wanjay. I'm going to get my keister in hot water. Essentially, they are. The first one is that you're essentially all in. And then the next few are basically you're sort of looking at yourself, like how have I contributed to this problem? And you sit down, you have a sponsor, hopefully, who you read some literature, and then you start to basically make a list of people that you have done not nice things to, and also your character flaws, if you will. And then the other steps are basically about approaching those people. We have a word, we call it making amends, where because you're, most of us alcoholics have said, I'm sorry, a million times. And then we meant it, we absolutely meant it, but just wanted to get messed up, So the living amends is doing it, not saying it, doing it is one of the key points. And the other is, when you make that amends, are you like the philandering husband who wants to get it off his back, so he says, honey, I shagged the secretary? No. It's not about getting your guilty burden off. It's about really moving forward in your life, looking at what you did wrong, giving that person an opportunity also to add, which is kind of unpleasant usually, more things that you effed up on. And then really listening and acting on it, doing it. So we call that an amends. That's a little bit further on, you can imagine, in the steps, because you gotta, that can be difficult. Well, no, that is difficult for virtually everybody. And then the last three steps are just sort of keep doing it. In Japanese, we say sonna choshi, sonna choshi. That's it, attaboy, attagirl. Keep going. You got it. You got it. Basically encouraging you to continue that. So it's essentially going all in, admitting that you have a problem, admitting that you have an alcohol problem, looking at yourself and trying to evaluate what are my character flaws that and a lot of times we think they're outstanding, great things, but as we do these steps, we realize maybe not so much. And then approach the people who, if possible, who we've wronged, and change our actions and continue to do it. In a nutshell, is what the 12 steps are. Oh, I'm sorry.
How do you, am I right that an AA meeting, people can come in as often as they want?
Yes.
So
Yes.
how do you make a community of people dropping in and out, and how do people feel comfortable to be able to talk what's on their heart when maybe 3 or 4 people?
That's a really good question. That's a really good question. So there are two answers. It's when you first begin the program, you are urged to do what we call 90 and 90. That is, come to 90 meetings in 90 days. Now, there are people who will say, you're being brainwashed. And they're right. You are being brainwashed. And your brain needs washing, right? Like, really, like 2 cycles for this bad boy's brain. But so, one, go to a lot of meetings. And the 2 reasons for that is exactly to your next point. There are some meetings that click and some that don't. And you don't want to be put off by the program by the fact that there's a personality in that room who is endangering your sobriety, because the number one thing is you stay sober. So if you're in that environment, you choose another meeting. And so you find meetings that you're comfortable with, and it's human nature. There are going to be some that you aren't. You make a routine of going to the ones that you like, and it's hard. To your last question, which is the most important one, how can you open up and be so honest? Because it is legit. Well, kinds of little expressions like from Yale to jail, from Main Street to Wall Street. It really is a cast of humanity that come in there, but something about those rooms, that is our sanctuary. And actually, I had a discussion with Juan Jay about it, and the reason I'm making this presentation is, honestly, those AA rooms are where I get spirituality. I want to get it here. But in all honesty, it's there that I get it. And it's from that sense of fellowship. Even if we met the first day, you feel okay about telling these most embarrassing, crappy things that you've done, really embarrassing shit. You're sharing it because the other people are sharing it, and you feel like you can be vulnerable. You're okay to be vulnerable. That's the higher power coming through us to the other people around us. So that it's kind of shocking. Like, you wouldn't think that you could sit in a room. And the meeting here is open, just for record. On Thursday evening, if you ever want to check it out, I chair that meeting. It's a tiny meeting. You're all anybody is welcome. It's an open meeting, what's called open. Now, you got to be careful, because there's also a meeting in here which is women only, and it's not open. So you gotta, but that's their gig. You, as chair of the meeting, can determine who is welcome. We have open because because we have a lot of med students around here. And I like that they show up. And it's a little bit weird if there's like 3 guys in the meeting and like 4 med students sitting in the back, but they're the ones who are going to spread that message to people who sometimes really need it a lot. So we embrace them into our even sometimes tiny meeting. But to the point, open meetings, you're welcome to come and to just look. And you don't have to feel like, oh, but I'm not an alcoholic, should I not be here? What people will often say is, I'm just visiting. I'm just, because we go around the room and just say something like, I'm just taking it in. I was just curious about the program, and you'll be, well, I can't speak for other meetings. In our meeting, you'll be completely welcome. So.
My question then is, during those amends
Yes.
sessions, do folks feel like relationships are renewed, and
Hopefully.
does that kind of enlarge their support system in a way?
Hopefully, yes. But if you think about your family dynamic, and I don't know how big your family is, but especially if it's a bigger family, there may be people that you could approach and be so good-natured and so purely reflecting Christ's light in the conversation, they're not in. But that doesn't mean I shouldn't make an amends to that person, but I shouldn't expect that our relationship is going to be, I almost said that one. Rainbows and what is it? Oh boy, that almost slipped out and being recorded. Rainbows and daisy, unicorns. That's the PC version. Rainbows and unicorns. Whoops. So, be realistically, ideally, yeah. But the amends are a really tricky thing, because are we making that amends to get that guilt off our shoulders? But that's a little bit like suicide. I remember I was right on the verge of committing suicide once, and I looked down off the bridge into the water way down below, and I thought, yeah, this will end my problems right here, right now, baby. And I thought, you're a effing loser, because that is not going to end your problems. That is going to transfer your problems onto someone else, like your daughter, your wife. So don't be a loser, and get your pea picker up off that bridge and work on what you're contributing to this problem rather than just shifting it. So we don't want our amends to be a shift, because mostly people will pick that up. They'll know it's BS. They'll know it's how Ben is just trying to get himself out of hot water. He's just saying what I want to hear, and I'm not having any of it. So in that regard, it could backfire and not work. I haven't been in, and actually I have embarrassingly little knowledge of the whole AA program. I knew the name only before I came in. And actually, I knew I was an alcoholic from way back when I was 26 years old, I think. I was going to a movie in Hawaii. This will date me. It was the opening of Star Wars. And I was going to the movie, and I was a little bit lit already, but I wanted to get a quart. And I was really upset that I didn't have time to go to the liquor store and get the quart of beer. And I was like, dude, you got a problem, man. If you care that much about not being able to get 1 quart Steinlager, it was Steinlager, I remember. Yeah. So I didn't have a problem admitting that I was an alcoholic, but I didn't know a lot about the program. So to answer his question, in case you're curious, Al-Anon is a program designed for people so if this is the group of alcoholics, it's sort of everybody in the next ring around us, our friends, our partners, our children, our parents, who may or may not be alcoholics, but aren't expressing that they are. They're more there to understand Ben's problem or Mike's problem or Joe's problem. So, very likely. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Because they are often people that have sort of pushed you into the program, which in my experience has limited, it's a little bit like pushing people to God. You know, I've had friends in the past who are hardcore evangelizers, and they drove me batty. They did not drive me any closer to spirituality. And that's why when I like, I love that food pantry and now the bike mission, because this is ways that I can actively reflect Christ's light without browbeating. Well, I guess putting the sticker on is a little brow pat, with that spiritual 2x4. But anyway, ongoing. No, it's St. Paul's, in the basement of St. Paul's Church. You'll hear me. Oh, you dodged the bullet because you come early and you get your spirituality early. God love you. But if you came to the main event, you'd hear me. In fact, I was just thinking that I got to start hyping for the the big pushes for the yard sale. But originally it started because we had a couple bikes left over from the yard sale. And I was like, well, Bev's been instrumental in this, that she posts them. So we sort of generate interests. That's through the church. But I also talk about it in meetings when I hear that somebody's gotten a DUI and lost their car, which sadly happens.
Although we sell them, they're very nicely priced.
Exactly.
That is so wonderful that you have bikes for people who had problems with DUI, and that's an amazing mission, Ben.
It's St. Paul's. That's just, Kate, I'm just doing what you do. I'm just doing the same thing you do, just a different way. Seriously, I could look around this room and say something that I know every single one of you has contributed to this community, and that's why this community works. That's why. It's not a great big, well, is one great big thing over there, but the rest of us, it's not one great thing, big thing. It's many, many things that, yeah, anyway.
I have a friend who's has been an Al-Anon for 25 years. Her son, they're very affluent family. Her son was a heroin addict, and he's been clean for 25 years, and she still does. It's so important to her. And she's what they have mentor. What do you call it when you have
Sponsors and sponsees.
Yeah.
This is the service part that I was talking about. That's the later steps, the way to keep you in it, not to think, because it's really tempting to think, like, so now I'm 6 years, 6.5 years out. I have no desire for alcohol at all. None. And my ego is going to tell me, Ben, you're on it, dude. Screw AA, man, you got more important things to do. Very dangerous thinking.
May I ask, how did you overcome that first resistance? For a long time,
To giving over to the higher power, or to just joining AA? It was my ego, because I sincerely believed that I could handle it. And I sort of was, because I know, I forgot to say one really important thing. I was absolutely focused on gifts of fortune, because all of my life I believed gifts of fortune, money, education, a nice house, these are the things that are going to give me ability to choose my course and make decisions and be in control. Absolutely, I'm all in. And I was super competitive in a number of sports and did okay. I sponsored and stuff, but I was all about win, win, win. But in the AA program, they teach us that you have to surrender to win. I was not about surrendering to win. Surrendering is for losers. Not going to surrender. No. Like if I'm in an argument with you and I'm right, I'm going to dig. I don't care if I'm drawn, disharmony in the room, but I was right. No. being right is not worth breaking the harmony. This is something that is sort of learning. Surrendering to win. In other words, you really, really can win by surrendering. That's
What
how.
does someone say to you that made you say, I'm going to try a meeting?
Try meetings?
Try a meeting. The first time.
The very first time, Lindy, actually the person who might be watching, just said in a very delicate way, Ben, do you think you have a problem with alcohol? And I said, yeah, I do. And she said, have you tried AA? And I said, eh, I don't even know where to go for AA. But, and then she, at the time, Jeff was our rector here, and one of the people in our, actually my sponsor as it goes, had told Jeff that if anybody approaches you and wants an introduction to the program, I'll be there. So it's not the same as being your sponsor, but it's like they take you under the wing and bring you to a meeting and like drive you there if you don't have a car and just sort of make sure you get there for the first few times. So that was what it was. But honestly speaking, when I came in, I knew I needed it, so it wasn't so as difficult for a lot of people, especially the younger people, especially when they start getting hit with the God stuff on the steps about God, where it's like you can't be sort of in it. Yes, you can. You can do whatever you want. But I've seen so many people who are sort of in and don't keep coming. So you can do whatever the heck you want, but the ways I've seen it working are by being all in. So that's the other thing, is that we have this big thing of leading by example. Not, Marianne, you should da-da-da-da. No. You're upset about something, and I say, well, when that happened to me, I da-da-da-da-da. You decide if you're going to act on it. You decide if that's the stupidest thing I ever heard in my life. No way in God's green earth am I doing that. Or, you have another tool in your toolbox. So when you have a problem, you open that toolbox and you pick the right tool. Because if you only have hammer, everything looks like a nail. So you got to have some more tools in that box.
But you were ready. It sounds like you, at that time, you were ready.
Kate, that's so important. That is so the key. Because if you're not ready, like I'm sure we all know people in our lives who we would love to get into this program. They can't be pushed. They can only be, what do we say? It's a program of attraction, not persuasion. I know I'm terrible with my AA terms, aren't I? Something like that. But essentially, you want to do it because you think, Mike has something that I want. Not, Mike said you better go. Because they're the folks that come and you sign their papers and you smile and you try to make them feel welcome, and as soon as the paper is full, they never come back. Sadly. But that's life. That's okay. We do what we can.
I feel like that starting point is so interesting. I'm sure many of us have stories like this where you have a friend who, not necessarily alcohol, but something else, and they're completely committed to leaving the life the way they are. They're not, how you help them see the crack in the door that enables them to step through to something else is so tricky. And so, Ron Jay was talking to us once about the Laird book, I think. There's this image of a dog who's been injured and he's had to be in a cage, and when he gets out, he only goes around in circles. And how you get that dog, or me, whatever it is,
right,
to sort of start moving forward, taking the longer steps is so difficult and so frustrating for those of us who may see loved ones who are in that situation and kind of looking for that word, that key that will help them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's so true, mate. That is so true. That is true. All we can do is just, you know what we can say to those people? You are not alone. Because a lot of times these people are really lonely. When you're getting into proper addiction and alcoholism, you typically have pushed away the people that are important to you, and you're going into sort of a dark and lonely place. and you don't think anybody else can understand it. And just those words of "you are not alone," they're really good because they're safe words. Like, I used to work in mountain patrol, and one of the most important things not to say is everything's going to be okay, because we don't know that. They might lose a leg in this situation. They might lose their life in this situation. You do not want to say everything's going to be okay, because if things don't go right, they come back and say, "You said everything is going to be okay. Did you screw up, Ben?" And I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. So, but you are not alone. And the thing is, we can say it with conviction because God is always with them. Always. Even if they're lonely in the dark room with the curtains drawn and the substance or just the depression is sitting on that table and nothing there, they aren't alone. And so that can be helpful words. But it's really, really difficult. How do we help the people in that who need it the most? Just offer a hand. Hold a hand out, and they might reach up. There's a great mural down in the ink block in next to 4-Point Channel. They have some outdoor art, and one of them is two hands coming together, and it says, "Forgiving, forgetting," but it says for hyphen giving, for hyphen getting. And those little hyphens really add a lot of meaning into it. So, yeah. I would say if you have a person in your life who you think might benefit by it, just ask them if they think they have a problem. Just go with that at first. Don't tell them they have a problem, because they're not going to listen to you. Well, most likely they're not going to listen to you. Ask them if they think they have a problem. And if they do, the door is open. Be gentle. Delicately say, "I heard Ben goes to meetings. Maybe he'll take you to one," and I will in a heartbeat. Or I heard Joe. I heard Sam. And the more you speak, we are an anonymous program, but some of us are very open about being it and very anxious to bring new people in. So if you know anybody who you would just like to introduce, and I'm happy to tell that person when our meeting is, and let it hopefully go from there.
Ben, you've been doing that over the years. You've brought people to meetings here, and you've also helped people to actually join the congregation and get to see these kids. I don't think that aspect of your ministry, I don't know how many people know about it.
Well, a few have come. I'm proud of that. But
Not that that's the
they,
way forward. I'm just
no. Yeah, but thank you for acknowledging it, Wanje. I appreciate that. Thank you for pointing it out. I think that of that as gravy. Frankly, I I told some folks about this. So, but I don't know if it gets posted online. Maybe they'll check it out.
so appreciative of
It's
love and care for others.
And sharing.
You're welcome. It really is a great program. It's the best thing that's happened. Well, no, it's not the best thing that happened. The best thing that happened in my life is that my wife said yes. Whew, can't believe she said that. And she hasn't said no yet. Anyway, two best things. So let's be clear about that. But other than that, getting sober, and my kids being born, damn it. Oh, you're going to call me out on this? But our joining this program and what how it's changed my life, and how I would hope, changed the lives of the people around me too, so, if possible. Anyway, thank you for the opportunity to listen. Hope I haven't bored you silly. Grab a cup of coffee if needed.